Call the roll.
Trustee Gray.
Present.
Trustee Holtz.
Present.
Trustee Rogers.
Present.
Trustee Suisse.
Present.
Trustee Pazmino.
Present.
No. Mayor Yukich.
Present. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Okay. Would be reports and communications from mayor and other officers. I can start out. Remember to follow parking restriction rules during snowfall this season. There is no parking on all village streets after 2 inches or more of snowfall until removal is completed. Vehicles will be ticketed or towed if not in compliance, and please drive safe this winter. And one other thing I did forget to say, Trustee Berrien will not be here today. He is stuck down in Springfield. So, and the same thing that Lieutenant tells us all the time, lock your car doors, because that's how they're getting it. So, I mean, you don't want to leave an open invitation, so lock the doors. Go to the trustees. We'll start down with Trustee Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple quick things regarding Homerfest. We continue to make great progress toward the 2020 event. We're talking about drainage for the site. Carlo Caprio continues to line up the bands, and we're putting everything together. It's hard to believe it's already the end of February, and this thing will be here sooner rather than later. So everything's going well. If anybody has any wants to see any more information about it, you can visit homerfest.com. And we will be moving our March meeting because it doesn't conflict necessarily, but it's on March 17th, which happens to be St. Patrick's Day, and it's an election day. So we're going to move that meeting. We're putting out a feeler to all the committee to find out what date works. And if anybody wants to attend that meeting, please just check the website.
Okay. And as it stands right now, everything is going to be status quo from last year?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Trustee Holtz?
No report.
Thank you. Trustee Rogers?
The Parks and Rec Committee meeting is pushed to March 30th to accommodate the review of the RFPs for Glenview Walk by the committee so that they can in turn turn it around to the board by the first meeting of April.
Okay. Thank you. Trustee Pazmino?
No report.
Thank you. Trustee Suisse?
No report this evening, Mayor.
Thank you. Village Clerk?
I do have a short report. In front of you, I passed out a list of the business registrations that are currently unpaid at the moment. You'll see 5 highlighted businesses in yellow, which I do understand now that those are businesses that had paid but did not pay the late fee yet. There are 2 businesses that are on this list that were not removed yet because we just found out, but they are no longer in business. But we currently stand at 25 commercial brick and mortar businesses that haven't paid and 35 home businesses. They have all been notified by either email or phone call to let them know that their registration has not been paid.
Thank you, Christine.
And then, I'm sorry, and one also a little reminder for the trustees, if you have a report that you would like submitted for the minutes, just a little reminder to please email them to me. That's all.
Okay. Thank you. Next would be Village Attorney.
No report, Your Honor.
Thank you. Next, Public Safety Official.
No report.
You can repeat it. Let's beat it in their heads.
You did a good job for me.
Thanks, Jim. Village Manager.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to just let the public know that March 11th, which is our next board meeting, right prior to our next board meeting, we're actually going to be doing a kickoff public meeting with our branding project, and that meeting will be held from 5:30 to 7 before the next board meeting on March 11th.
So 5:30?
5:30 to 7.
Okay. Is that it? Okay. Next would be public comment.
No one has signed in for public comment.
Thank you. Consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine by the village board and will be enacted in one motion. Is there a motion to approve the following items? 1, the accounts payable for the period of February 14th, 2020 through February 27th, 2020 in the amount of $586,857.67. The Treasurer's report of cash and investments for the period ending January 31st, 2020. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Trustee Gray, is there a second?
Second.
Trustee Pazmino, discussion. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Holtz? Aye. Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Suisse? Aye. Trustee Pazmino?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Motion carries. Legislation and action items. Approval to initiate recruitment for seasonal positions. Is there a motion to authorize the village manager to initiate recruitment of seasonal positions?
So moved.
Trustee Rogers?
Second.
Trustee Holtz? Discussion?
I would just say that at the Parks Committee, Ruben, right, we spoke about this at the Parks Committee, and the overall consensus of the Parks Committee was that we felt like we really needed this, because there's so many times they can't get to the parks on Monday because it's raining, but it was beautiful out on Saturday and Sunday, so we think that this will be a great improvement to the overall upkeep of all of the parks.
So I'd like to ask a question to the village manager. This is, we're giving you authorization to go out and start recruiting before there's actually money budgeted, is that correct?
Right, that's why I'm before you tonight.
Right.
Because we really, I need you to authorize that because the budget won't be affected until May 1st. Obviously, Mr. Sawyers is going to be presenting the budget shortly to you. We're going to have a workshop next month. It's going to go to A&F next week for you to start getting into it. But we didn't want to wait to start the recruitment because if you look around the region, everyone's recruiting for the same type of public positions, seasonal positions. And we're already a little bit behind the 8 ball because of our cycle, of our budget cycle. But I also didn't want to start advertising for recruitment without authorization from the board because I don't want to assume that we know, I understand that some of these positions are new seasonal positions that I'm asking for in the budget. And I want to make sure that that's a conversation you can have during your budget cycle, but we want to at least get the advertising, the notices out, get them advertised so we can start recruiting now. None of these positions would start before the new budget, May 1st. But I just don't want to wait until May 1st to do it because we had a hard time, if you remember last year, recruiting our seasonal positions too, and we need to be competitive in the marketplace.
So would it make sense then to, I mean, how much are we talking about for seasonal helpers, ballpark?
The total dollar amount is actually in your budget, in your memo. Whoops, sorry, let me go back. Hold on, let me pull it up real quick. I thought I was up here on the screen.
For the seasonal workers?
Yeah, so the total dollar amount is
39,000?
$86,809. So the seasonal maintenance workers is for 2 at 40 hours a week for 8 months at $39,185. What Trustee Rogers was referring to, one of the things that we're working with Director, with John Robinson is adjusting the work week. The way we currently do it is a Monday through Friday work week. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to go a 7-day work week. So we'll have workers actually working Saturday and Sundays too. This will allow us to spread out our resources more. It does account for weather challenges we get during the season. And will also allow us to reduce our overtime in our budget because now we won't have to pay overtime on a Saturday or Sunday when we might be having a special event or something happening special. It'll be at a regular rate of pay. So that's in the new adjustment we're going to be going forward with the new budget year.
I have a question. Will that hold true, too, for the special events intern and code officer, where it might be all weekends or?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. That's the whole reason that we're recommending those, is that their schedules will shift so that the code enforcement officer is only for 200 hours during the busy season of the year, but we do envision that we can have them available on weekends or maybe on different schedule, because sometimes we have code enforcement issues that are not a Monday through Friday issue. So that would help with that, as well as the special events intern, which is which is basically 3 days a week. They would be assigned, their work week will shift. So if we have like Homerfest, or we have the bike event, or any of the other things, they will work on the weekends at regular rate.
Sounds like a real good plan. Okay, is there any other comments? Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Rogers?
Aye.
Trustee Suisse?
Aye.
Trustee Pazmino?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Holtz?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, workshop item, strategic plan update. Carrie, you got this one.
All right, so I'm driving the bus tonight, so hold on tight. Matt's on vacation. So I wanted to, this shouldn't be too long of a workshop tonight, but I thought it was a good opportunity before we go into the new budget year that we take a look back at the last 18 months. If you will recall, and this was before I started, you guys adopted a strategic plan back in 2018, August of 2018. And that strategic plan included a lot of different stakeholder, a lot of activities you did. So on this first screen here, you did the National Citizen Survey, which went into your strategic planning efforts. You did stakeholder meetings. We took a review of all the previous documents and institutional knowledge we had on what the village had done so far. You did a SWOT analysis, and then basically in August of 2018, the village board adopted a strategic plan for the next 5 years. So what we've been working on internally at staff is taking a look at that strategic plan and putting together what we've accomplished in the last 18 months, and then looking forward on what we see as things we're still working on that haven't been quite finished yet. And then we want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges that are going to be, that we still face as it relates to implementing the strategic plan. And I want to get your input on that as we start the new budget process and the new upcoming year. So basically, as part of the strategic plan, just to remind you guys, there were 6 major strategic priorities that were adopted by the board. These are the 6: economic development, financial stability, growth, intergovernmental partnerships, recreational amenities, and infrastructure. As part of each one of these 6 strategic priorities, you guys also identified 3 desired outcomes that you wanted for each one of these goals. And so I'm just going to briefly go through these. So the first one was economic development, and these were the 3 desired outcomes that were listed in the strategic plan. It was clarity on vision and strategy for our commercial corridors and large parcels that will still remain to be developed. We wanted to expand the tax base, and we wanted to increase our developable land inventory. And actually, and I can't really take credit for it, although I have almost been here a year, you guys have accomplished a lot. In your packets that were included with your agendas that were distributed last Friday, I included a spreadsheet that you had that kind of lists all the accomplishments. I don't have all of them listed tonight on the worksheet presentation, but I've highlighted the big ones. But you do have the detail in your packet that was given to you. So these are some of the accomplishments that have been completed in the last 18 months as it relates specifically to this goal. And you can see on the list, there's some big ones here. A lot for the village and the village board to be proud of. Well, we have 159th Street substantially completed. That's a huge project. In the last 18 months, you've had 84,773 square feet of new commercial space built within the village. In terms of annual revenue, we estimate that annually, based on just the 2019, we don't have the 2018 numbers yet. I had to go back to the state to get those. An estimated additional $181,000 is going to be generated annually in our budget from those efforts. Now that the Finnement Creek Sanitary Sewer and the 159th Street water main is completed, we have over 750 acres that are now serviced by utilities that weren't previously. That's a big number. We have 26 new businesses that opened, and we have 26 businesses that were retained. Also included in your packet was a detailed spreadsheet that actually Janie, Director Patch, provided, and she updates this as new businesses come online. And so you also have that, the detail behind that as well in your packet. Obviously, we completed the first phase of the feasibility study for a possible sports complex to be in the village. We completed the entire signage code update through the whole process and approved, and we expanded a significant amount of our special events and visitors who came to the village to enjoy those. So what are we still working on? The comprehensive plan, that's been a big initiative in this past year, and we're about 50% through with that project. So that project will be completed in this year, in 2020. Finally, they broke ground. Goodings, the Goodings Grove development, new residential development, the first one in over 10 years. You guys drive out there, there's actually units being constructed, and they're hoping to start leasing in the spring. So that's a great project too. And then we've initiated, just recently in the last board meeting, we initiated the branding plan, and tied to that will be our new marketing. Whatever from that branding plan will be our wayfinding, our new signage, and our marketing plan for the future too. So those are all very proactive steps. So a lot of these challenges we've talked about in recent meetings, as we've been talking about the comp plan, the challenges still are the same that present to the strategic plan as we try to continue to implement those those 6 strategic priorities that the board has set. And those are limited lots that are available that are already plotted in existing subdivisions. There aren't a whole lot of them out there anymore. We'll be looking at the conservation design ordinance and what those restrictions are and see if there's things that can be made changes to it to make development occur within the village. Obviously, the 159th Street construction impacts, there's still some lingering effects of that as we continue to go into the spring and the summer months and get that project completed and start to let the community and the region know that that road is open now and the construction is finally over. And obviously, one of the things that we have little control over, but we still have to acknowledge it as a challenge, is we have competition both for residential and commercial development from the surrounding communities around us as well. And we need to be tracking what's going on in those other communities and make sure we know what that competition is. The next one is financial stability, and the 3 desired outcomes are listed here on the screen. And I don't think that you could be any more financially stable than be completely debt-free. And you guys did that this past year. So we paid off our general obligation bonds. We were currently debt-free. We, thanks to Mr. Sawyer, so we got our audit certification award again. We got some grant funding in the last 18 months. We got the $100,000 for the 151st Street bike path. And we also got the $521,000 for the 319 grant for Heritage Park. We launched our 2020 sponsorship program last year so that we can help offset the cost of our special events. And actually, that's been very well received with our business community. We've gotten quite a few commitments already for those. We maintained our bond rating, and both last year as well as this projected year, we are projecting again 2 years of operating surpluses as well. So you can't get more financially stable than that.
Agreed.
So what are we going to continue to work on in the future? One of the things that was in the strategic plan was the development of a 5-year capital plan. So that's something that staff will start pulling together, and we'll put that, we'll gather that information and place it throughout the next 5 years, and we'll tie what we believe our revenue needs will be, along with potential revenue opportunities to fund that 5-year capital plan. So that's something we'll be working in the coming year on. And then this is my first year in the budget, so I'm learning a lot from the gentleman sitting next to me. And I'm kind of listening and observing and seeing how we do our budget here. And then next year, what I want to do for the budget year next year is I want to start to incorporate these strategic goals that you guys have adopted as part of the budget document and start tying those things back. And we already do that now. The budget document that John and staff work on, it ties back to those major initiatives, it highlights those major initiatives, and it shows you where the money's going for those major initiatives. I want to start tracking some performance indicators and some things that we can put in that we can track over the course of many years moving forward as well. Challenges, obviously, we're still very reliant on sales tax. That can be a good thing or a bad thing depending on the economy. And one of the things that we're also very reliant on is getting our local government share from the state of Illinois. I think we all recently, I sent some information out to all the board members earlier in the week about a memo that came out from IML, that there may be additional dip into that if the increase in the income tax is not approved by referendum. The governor in his proposed budget has recommended that if that is not approved, that there's going to be another 5% that will be held back that we will not be receiving. So those are things that we have to watch and be aware of, because what happens at the state level does impact the local level as well. Okay, so the third one is growth. These are the 3 outcomes that are listed in the strategic plan that we're trying to accomplish. And we've actually accomplished quite a few things for this as well. We have the development of Heritage Park. We have the neighborhood connections we made with the paths, which has really been a focus. We have now 5.5 miles of new bike path in the village with the completion of those connections, as well as with the bike path that's along 159th Street that connects the east-west areas of the village. We have the development, again, of the first new residential subdivision, and again, we're still working on the comprehensive plan. So next steps, the comprehensive housing analysis is currently underway as part of the comp plan. We're looking at our design guidelines as well, which we started with our public meetings we had last month. We're doing an annexation study right now in-house by staff, and we are about 50% completed with that. So that will be presented to the village board this year as well. And it will have every piece of property that's an unincorporated township, and it will show the different paths of opportunity for future annexations and the pros and cons of each one of those. And tied to that is the utility gap analysis that we're also doing in-house. And we are taking a look at where our existing utilities are. We're taking a look at where those gaps are and how we can connect those utilities in the future and what we think the best possible routes would be, as well as what the costs associated with that would be as well. So we're doing both of those plans in-house right now with staff, and those will be presented later in this year to the board for review. The challenges, again, some of our codes are overly restrictive, so those are some of the things that we're looking at right now. We still have gaps in our trail system. We still have competition that will impact our growth from our neighboring towns. And one of the things that we are going to work on is trying to come up with a proactive preservation plan for open space as opposed to being reactive. Are there critically environmentally sensitive areas in town that we should be taking a look at proactively, how we preserve them and keep them forever as open space in the village? Many other towns in the Chicago region do that, and there's different mechanisms of going out to get grants to do that. But it'd be a great opportunity to identify those sites and figure out a plan and a strategy and how we can preserve those. So that's something that we have on our to-do list to do this year as well. Intergovernmental partnerships, these were the three desired outcomes that were in the strategic plan. Basically, enhance equitable provider relationships, that would be with the Sheriff's Department as well as with the township. Enhance our IT services and equipment, and create a clear vision for community boundaries. Some of these are tied together. Obviously, you can see there's overlap between some of these. We're in the process right now of renegotiating our IGA with the township. We've been working on that for a while. The township board, which I attended the last board meeting, they did vote to basically go ahead and move forward with the construction of the path between the township and the library and us. We're in the process of engineering, designing that, and working on the amended IGA for that, and that should be in place and constructed by the time the Homerfest commences this year. So that's good news. We did renew our contract with the IT consultant this past year for another one-year renewal. So but we did look at other opportunities and other vendors, and we did, if you remember, we did an RFP to make sure that we were going with the right IT provider. We initiated, John Robinson has been very good about coming up with a replacement program for our staff computers and equipment so that we're not replacing them all at one time. We get on a cycle of replacement, so that's been underway. iWorks is a big deal. Joe could probably talk about this more than I can. This is our software program that now we are tracking our permitting through. We're tracking our business license through. We're tracking our contractor's renewal license through. It's like almost like a new day. And it's going very well. Our staff is trained on the system. We can run reports on it. We can, it's a much improved process for all of our different licenses and our permitting as well. So that's been a huge improvement in the last year. We implemented our GIS program last year, which was a huge initiative as well, and we continue to add layers to that as well. And we're going to get to the point with our GIS system where we'll have it on our website, and actually the public will be able to go out there and manipulate it and use it as well, and they can find a lot of valuable information. Our development community will be able to use it as well. And then, I can't take credit for this one, but the Sheriff's Department contract for last year, if you recall, it came in lower than we expected. It was about a $200,000 savings. Thank you. And so that was a unexpected bonus to the budget. And then we have worked on enhancing our communications with our border communities. We know that there are probably opportunities where we are going to have to work with Lockport as it relates to sewer service and other types of utilities. And so we are working on making sure that we can enhance those communications. Again, our boundary agreements, some of them have already expired and some of them will be expiring soon, and those are things that we're going to have to work on as part of the strategic plan. So just kind of, again, the annexation study will be completed in 2020. That's going to go hand in hand with the boundary agreements we have in place. We're going to continue to review and refine the sheriff's contract as well as the road district contracts. This year we will have our own Channel 6 that we will be able to broadcast just to the Homer Glen residents. And not only will we be able to utilize it for our marketing events, but we're going to invite all the other governmental entities within Homer to utilize it too. So the Sheriff's Department, the fire districts, the schools, if they want to put information out there to push out to our residents, they'll have the opportunity to do that as well. In the upcoming budget year, you're going to see that all of our IT functions have been merged and consolidated into one cost center, so it'll be easier to track our needs and our budget for our IT going into the future. And then the other thing you're going to see that's going to be recommended in the upcoming budget is the purchase of the Laserfish software. This is very important. We've talked about this before. Chris wants this in the budget. This will be our legislative tracking system moving forward for the village. And so all of our public documents, all our agendas, our minutes, everything, we will utilize this Laserfish software. This is a very common software program that's used by many, many municipalities. And it is searchable, it's trackable, you can put it on our website, and you can have certain documents that the community can go in and find themselves instead of have to file a FOIA to get them. So it's actually going to make us much more user-friendly, but will help us long-term track all of our legislative files too. And it's all cloud-based too, so I'm excited about this project. So we're going to use it going forward, but then there's a lot of the last 19 years of information. We'll be scanning some of those interns that we would like to hire seasonally, will help us do some of that back scanning and getting those files where they need to be in the new software system. And the challenges is obviously our boundary expiration with Lockport is going to be coming up here relatively soon, quicker than we think. And then there's a lot of unknown external pressures out there as it relates to what's happening in just the state of Illinois, and we can't account for all of those. Recreational amenities, we've obviously made a lot of progress here. These are the 3 desired outcomes: clarity on the future recreation heritage park that works for the entire community, and expanded parks and trail service. So these were your 3 desired outcomes, and we've accomplished actually quite a bit in this particular category as well. Active Core is open, as you guys know, substantially complete. We have a punch list of items that will be finished in the spring when the weather breaks. If you add that along with the 319 grant area, along with the Heritage Circle, that's 60 acres of total of the park that has been completed thus far to date. We've expanded our special events. We added to our Homer for the Holidays with the lights that we'll continue to put out every year. We are underway with our design and engineering for the next phase based on the approval of the village board. The Northwest Neighborhood Connection has been opened. We've had the bike pass open. We have Glenview Walk RFP that's out on the street right now. Will be back before us by the end of March. We have the Heritage Fishing Pond, which is at least stocked, and we got to let the fish grow for the next 3 years and leave it alone. And then obviously we put together our sponsorship program to promote our special events with our businesses in town. So what are we continuing to work on? We have obviously the further development of Heritage Park, Glenview Walk construction next year. Recreational programming plan, that's some of the things that we just started talking about actually at the...
This year.
This year, yeah, this year. This will be done this year. At the last Parks and Rec Committee meeting, we talked about some programming that we could be starting to offer in terms of like some one-day like pickleball and tennis court, not classes, clinics, there you go, that's the word I was looking for, that we can start offering and slowly start to get into the arena programming as opposed to just special events. And then the phase 1 at the west extension of Heroes Trail is on our to-do list as well. So the challenges that we still face is limited open space, obviously in some of our older subdivisions that we're still trying to get creative with and figure out how to solve that. We still have gaps in our trail system. And then as always, as we expand our resources our services that we offer to our residents, we have to be conscious of available resources and staff to provide those services, which will be a challenge in the future. So infrastructure, These were the three outcomes that, again, were listed in the strategic plan: stable water rates, water and sewer system that meets the future needs, and improved stormwater system. So what have we accomplished today? Well, we have 750 acres of land that is now serviced by utilities that wasn't otherwise. We have a number of drainage projects that are underway, about $2.8 million total. We have the Illinois American Water lawsuit that will be proceeding forward in trial this year. So we'll have resolution on that. Obviously, 159th Street completed is a big one as it relates to road infrastructure. And for 151st Street, Phase 1 has been commenced and will be completed this year for that project. So here's just some things that we're going to continue to work on. I already talked about some of these things, so I won't hit on them again. Challenges, obviously, what do we do after we get the verdict with the water agency? That'll be a decision the board's going to have to make. We still have a number of utility gaps, and how do we plan for the future service needs as it relates not just to the infrastructure, but the resources available to put those in. And then our 5-year capital plan is really wrapping arms around what is our long-term capital plan, what are all those needs that we put in the bucket, and then how do we space them out over 5 years so we can show what that picture looks like to the village board so you can make additional future policy direction to staff. So that's all I got. Hopefully that wasn't too long. So discussions, questions. I guess the questions that I have for the village board tonight is, do you still agree with those 6 goals that were set as part of the strategic plan in 2018? And do you still agree with the desired outcomes? Or are there things that you would like to see changed or for staff to explore? Do you have any comments or input on any of the accomplishments? Do you have any recommendations for additional projects or activities we should be looking at as part of the implementation of the strategic plan that we haven't talked about or touched on? And do you have any comments or recommendations on how to address some of the future challenges that we're going to be facing? That's all I got.
Thank you. As for some of the steps, I think we're going in the right direction. I think we should take a look at what is still out there and what's feasible for us and what's not feasible. We can do some of the things that we've talked about a little bit further down the line too. But I think the village and this board has worked very hard to make sure that the residents here are getting what they wanted and basically deserve.
I think one of the things that I found so eye-opening when I was sitting down and we were working on collecting all the data is how much has been accomplished in a relatively short period of time. When you think that you adopted this plan in August of 2018, and you look at all the things that have been accomplished in basically 18 months, less than 2 years, it's a lot to be proud of. I mean, it's really almost amazing when you think about some of the things that have been accomplished. I know a lot of those things were in the works prior to the strategic plan being adopted, but there are some really big projects on here that you have been able to check off the boxes and say, hey, we got this done, and that says a lot to the community.
Yeah, if I could chime in, I'd just like to say, now I understand why I'm exhausted. We got a lot done, and so thank you for wrapping that up. It's great to have an overview of what we have accomplished. And really, I mean, you know, we get credit. Staff has done just an incredible job in keeping us on task, on point, making sure, like you said, that we're, you know, when we want to start straying down a different avenue, you guys always give us the leeway to say, you know, that's great, you know, that's what we're here for, but there could be implications to the strategic plan. So it's great to know that these things are still out there, and should we start to stray or go in a different avenue, you have these opportunities to come back to us and say, hey, this is why we're going this way, and do you want to continue on with this? So it's great to see that. And it's also great to see some of those numbers, and hopefully the community will pick up on that. Talking about 750 new acres being serviced by services, that's huge to developers. You know, I mean, they look at that and say, you know, is this land developable today? You know, can I put a shovel in it in the ground within 6 months? And, you know, making strategic moves to put in water and sewage takes a very long time to do. So having those things in place is really going to, you know, help with the development of some of those parcels of land. I think it was like 70 or 80,000 square feet of new retail and commercial space. I mean, we're talking about the shopping center at 143rd and Bell behind the Shell station where the dollar store is, and Taco Bell and O'Reilly's. And we're also talking about Shorewood, and we're talking about, I mean, we do have a lot of stuff going on all around the village. It's not just in one corridor, so it's great to see that. And I'm really stoked to see, I know Brian had said during our last meeting that, you know, he wished everybody had moved as fast as the square at Goodings Grove, the way they're building those townhouses. They didn't miss a beat throughout. Now, we've had a mild winter, and that's been a great thing, but they've been just going gangbusters. I mean, you can tell the enthusiasm from that developer to get into our community. You know, they want to get here. As you said, you know, we have outside pressures, too. We have neighboring communities that are putting up subdivisions, and they're right on our perimeter, you know, and so they're aware that they're going to have some competition, and that's their enthusiasm to really want to get in the ground here in Homer Glen and get those customers and say, hey, let's capture those here. So thank you very much for tying that all up. It is great to see. So
One of the concerns that came up several times was the boundary agreement, so I would like to see where are we with that? What is our plan for both the New Lenox and Lockport boundary agreements? What are our timelines for those? Because those, you know, even though it seems like government moves slow, the days go by really fast. They do.
A lot of that is going to be part of the future conversation. We come back with the board with the annexation study, because we're really looking parcel by parcel and really analyzing each one of those unincorporated areas to come up with a strategy so that when we go to negotiate those boundary agreements, we are armed with information, critical information that we need to know, because there might be some trading, there might be some changes in those boundary agreements, but if we're not armed with the education to understand what it is that we're looking at, then we can't make the best decision on behalf of the community. So like I said, we're about 50% through with that annexation study. We'll be meeting with the board to walk you through that. And then we will use that annexation study as we go to our neighbors and say, okay, now we're ready to start renegotiating some of these boundary agreements.
I agree. I think that will be here before we know it. And I would, especially along the 159th Street corridor, I would like to see a little bit more of an aggressive take, but that's just me. And then my other comment, and this is not in any way a criticism, it's more of an observation, under the new business opened expansion, the majority of those spaces are existing spaces that have just been taken over by a new business. So I guess I kind of take exception with the word expansion, because they're just filling pre-existing spaces. That's just my take, and that's not a criticism to anybody.
Sharon? Ruben? Okay. Thank
Looking
you very
good.
much, Carrie. That was very good. Okay. Is there any old business? Is there any new business? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second?
Sharon and Ruben. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries, meeting adjourned.